Hey Ash, will you shut my door? Will somebody shut it? Please. Thank you.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Last Call. Roadhouse Last Call. Today is Friday, which means this will be the last call of the week. What say you?
It's the last call. Did your weekend on a Friday?
It's the last call of the week.
Of the work week. Of the trading
I'm
week.
not going to come do this tomorrow. I'm not. I'm not.
Right, but is your week over or does it end on Sunday?
As far as the real world is concerned, yes, absolutely. It does actually end. From my standpoint, the week ends and all time stops the second that the market closes on Friday.
All time stops. That would be
All time
nice.
stops. Because I'm in the forest, you see. And sun goes up, sun goes down. That's about all that really matters, and how much work I can get done in
Cut down
between.
your tree friends.
Yeah. See, Judy's right. It is the land of the lost. It really, really is. Weather bender. We're talking about high of like 73,
I don't even
74 for
want
like
to
the
hear
next
about it.
for like the next 5 days. We're talking like honestly, I woke up this morning, I was like, oh man, I might have to put on pants. It's like it was that kind of like a little chill in the morning, which is interesting because then I started thinking is like because we had like a high 85, high 90, something like that last week, and I was like, this is just miserable. This is awful. And then I caught myself because I had this thing playing in the back of my head of Judy sitting there in complete hysterics as snow was falling and I'm freezing my ass off, being like, no, I will embrace this warm weather right now. I will not
Yeah,
allow
it's
Judy
coming.
will not allow Judy to smile at my misery. I will not allow it. It will not be something that I let take place. Yeah, I know it's coming. The White Walkers.
Yeah,
Feel like Jon Snow on
in
the
about
wall.
2 months, month and a half, I'm gonna be like, yeah, it's about 75 here, and
Yeah,
like, I'm looking forward to this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's like it's really really crazy. And so I think I have enough firewood, but apparently I do not. The FedEx guy said that I'm kind of fucked right now if I don't get to shop.
Yeah, and you'll get to the
And
point where
because this is how often I see other humans. It's like the FedEx guy has become like my pal, and it's like, hey man, do you think I got enough wood? He's like, no, not even close.
good stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. Headlines. Headlines want to say we have peak inflation. Headlines want to say that inflation is moving in the right direction. So headlines want to say all good in the hood. All good. All good.
Well, good.
Headlines
I
also
feel
want to
great
say
then.
Lines also say, don't get too in front of yourself. Don't over leverage yourself on this rally. Don't do this. Don't do that. Okay. Headlines also say that there is no reason for the Fed to back off a 75% rate hike, which, according to that little model, as far as what the Pink Polo boys are doing, they were pricing in off that rally on Wednesday a half a basis point raise. But a lot of folks are still saying, no, it's going to be a full 0.75, regardless of what the data is. They're going to jack it. And they're probably going to continue to jack it because their target is 2% inflation. And what, we're like at 6, 7, just depending on the hour. So when I get headlines that are so conflicting like this and so just goofy, kind of puts me in a position, well, okay, so then we have to do charts and flow because narrative is just not going to help in at this point in time. You have to acknowledge sometimes, I've always felt there's three pieces of the market. There's the narrative with the chart and there's the money. So when one of them is just like, well, this is just ridiculous, you have to move to the other two. So the other two are going to be very important. The only other headline that I think is really, really worthy of talking about is China is delisting 5 companies from the U.S. exchanges, saying we're out. Now, Bob has taken a hit this morning. A lot of the Chinese tickers are taking a hit this morning. But those are the companies that are not delisting. These are state-owned companies that are delisting, not, and I put this in quotation marks, private companies within China. These are the state-run, state-owned organizations that are delisting. So there appears to be a lot of lingering butthurt because of Nancy and her visit. So these things have a tendency to either fade or intensify. We still don't know which one of those it's going to be. So kind of have to, kind of sit back and see what the money wants to say. I'll get into some of the flow that, because this portion is going to be obviously brief, and then we'll move on to Bender. Some of the flow that I saw that was interesting to me yesterday coming into today, into next week. So with that being said, Mr. Bender, tell us about the lines.
I will tell you about. Did you see the lyrics I posted there? There's your song for the day. There's signs everywhere, man. Long-haired freaky people need not apply.
I don't have long hair. This
Anymore? Okay. Since you started cutting down the trees, you cut your hair. Probably put the BlackboxStocks in the closet. Okay.
Actually, I'm kind of wearing them right now. Just.
Sure. Okay. Where are we at here? We're at 42.30. So yesterday we talked about the midpoint of that upward parallel channel potentially being a difficult line to get through, and indeed it was. We came up to it, popped just barely through it, and then rejected and sold off the majority of the day. Very slow pace sell off, but we sold off the majority of the day after rejecting that midpoint. That line yesterday, that was 42.50 to 42.60. Today that looks like it's around 42.82. So lines above from where we currently are, 42.31. You got 42.46. You got 2 fibs that line up there. 42.60, yesterday's resistance. 42.70, there's a fib, and you have what was previously trendline support, now potentially acting as trendline resistance. And then 42.82 would be, there's a fib there, and that's also the midpoint of that parallel channel. Below us, 42.25, previous resistance, that's also the 10 MA on the 60 minute. Just below that, 42.21 is the 20 MA on the 60 minute. And then you got a fib at 42.10, obviously 4200 whole number, 41.87 fib below that. So this is kind of the areas above and below.
All right. So how are you kind of viewing things this morning?
I think that the fact that we held 4200 like a champ, I think is good. I think that historically, when we have like an earlier in the week sort of push up rally, and then pull back on Thursday, it sets up a decent Friday. We could, being back above the 10 and the 20. I like that we pulled back closer to the 50 MA on the 60 minute, which is 42.13. That's where that comes in now. To see us not so far away from those moving averages, I think it sets up a a decent trade, and hopefully we get some opportunity. Uh, if it looks like we're going to be in a bit of a trend, or even if we're going to get some range, hopefully we just don't flatline. But I'd much rather look at opportunities to go long when we're near, closer to some of those moving averages, and you don't have that, that big gap that eventually it's going to, come back and check that. We were pretty far away from the 50, after that run up on Wednesday. So to see us, kind of closer to those levels, I think it makes it a little bit easier to look at that and go, okay, well, it doesn't have, that in an uptrend that should act as support, and we know eventually, especially on like a 60-minute, eventually we're going to come back and test some of those moving averages. So the fact that we did, now we're back above them, I think sets up a decent long trade on Friday. But as we know, that can change pretty quick. I'll be keeping my eyes on stuff, and if I see something shift, or something that I think makes sense, I'll let you know.
All right, cool. Stockington.
Hello. Good morning.
Hey, Stockington.
Hi, I'm here.
It's good.
Beautiful. I'm ready. I'm looking at this ABBV, and I'm liking this. This is one where I think if we break, I have this line at 142.9. Yeah, I just woke up. That 142.9 inverse head and shoulders on longer time frames, and the fact that there was dark pool on it last night, 142.08. This would be one that I'd be looking at getting in pretty early here, right at the open. We had that theme yesterday of pharmaceutical-y type stuff. So I like the ABV setup a lot. So I'm going to be looking at those calls if we break that line right at the open. AMD, I'm looking at this 99.1. That trigger worked really well out of the gates yesterday. It also was lower orb, so that's just an important line for AMD if we're going to go back up. And then I've got Roblox. They were hammering on Roblox puts yesterday, I noticed. And I would adjust this line a little bit now that I'm looking. I think I originally said 50.5. So, 50.75 was pre-market resistance. It also came into play yesterday a few times, second half of the day. And then if Roblox is going to go down, I'm going to be looking at the reaction to 49.05. But yeah, that's what I got on the charts. That's it. I'm ready.
All right, the man says he's ready. All right, so from a flow standpoint, we saw some interesting stuff. We started losing some of the steam on those, and Apple is one of those triggers that I like to use. We started seeing some weakness in anything over, let's say 170, 172.50. We saw a decent amount come on the bid yesterday on Apple. We saw some weakness coming back into semis at the same time. The weakness is there. We also saw some interesting bid side calls taking place on the Microsoft over there. That was also very, very curious as far as that's concerned. Overall, though, flow still maintained a bullish lean, even though there was a decent amount of profit taking place. There were some, we actually saw some call buying in UVXY. We saw some we've seen activity after hours in the VIX. Remember that 20 player that was coming in and buying the 20s? That's all he would do every night after hours. Past 2 days in a row, that player has been back, and he has not been anywhere to be found over the last, let's say, 6 months. He's just been MIA. So that 20 players coming back in. If you look at the after hours flow, the last two days, he's there. As far as, $1 million here, drop $1 million on the VIX. Don't know what he's doing with it. Don't know what it is. But it seems like an interesting time to start putting on hedges with the VIX, especially because it is sitting at essentially 3-4 month lows. There are people that are starting to hedge. But a hedge is just a hedge. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily directional. So as always, eyes open to the activity. Let's try to have a neutral view on what we're seeing. I think that's going to be the most important thing, is trying to stay neutral, because it's very easy to start looking at these charts being like, oh, wow, it's like we have, maybe on some of these tickers based on all-time highs. We just have to make sure that we are really, really being diligent in our entries in the vehicles that we're choosing in order to maximize our profits. That's one of the biggest things that people fight against, that internal little clock, that internal little self of you determining what the time frame should be on your W, on your win, as opposed to really being methodical about it and saying, okay, this is the vehicle I'm going to use. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what the flow is telling me. This is what the chart is telling me. The time frame piece of it becomes even that probably the most crucial point that is overlooked. What is your time frame? Where are you trying to go with this? Where is it at? So I think that that's something to really, really keep in mind as we move forward, as we continue to just kind of hover in this level right at 4,200, like Bender mentioned, and that we held. Let's really keep our eyes open and have a firm understanding. Personally, I'm going to be watching Apple flow. I'm going to be watching semi flow very, very closely. There was weakness coming back in. But again, these things have big runs and big drops on semis, so you just really don't know what you're going to get. We do know that there are some pretty substantial macro headwinds in place for semis. They have all guided down. They have all said, things are not all that rosy, okay? But you have to ask your question, if the price action is still pushing it up in the face of this type of headwind, is that priced in? Are these things already so heavily discounted with a company like AMD still being 30 to 40% off of its all-time high? A company like NVIDIA, well off of its highs. Micron, well off of its highs. Intel, for obvious reasons, well off of its highs. These are some of the things that we have to keep in mind as we're going through and looking at flow and trying to digest the narrative as it comes in. So that's really all I have to say and what I'm going to be watching. Just be prepared to move in either direction. I think we've done a fairly good job of that over the past couple of weeks of being able to, kind of find a direction and work with that direction. And I expect that to continue. So everybody in the room who continues to contribute and put out great ideas, you are appreciated greatly. Bender, do you have anything else for the peoples?
No, nothing else for me.
It has nothing for the peoples. Stockington's probably walking his dog or wiping sleep out of his eyes or something. If you missed Stockington's just epic stories, it was like his experience in Vegas, not in Vegas, but in Atlantic City. Honestly, I think he put the folks from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas to shame. He really, it's like, you want to talk about a party. You want to talk about rolling tough and like doing some things that are intense.
Penny slots and a bunch of guys standing around watching him try room keys. That's what I gathered. They didn't.
I'm telling you, man.
They didn't go to strip clubs. They didn't go to bars. They played hotel key roulette.
I'm telling you, man. That dude is the real deal, man. Party animal.
So I
posted, you know what's gonna happen.
I posted the lyrics from a classic song that a lot of people are familiar with, and he posts Ace of Base, the sign, and that just sums it up for me.
Open up his mind.
All right. Well, we'll catch you in a few.
But Bender, here's the thing. We need people like Stockington to balance out people like us.
You're right.
We need people like him. We do. We should, instead of dogging on him, which I don't think we are,
No.
I think we should celebrate the fact that there's people like him running out there that neutralize the heathens. I think that's how we should kind of frame it a little bit. Anyways, 21 minutes to open. 21 minutes to open. See what we got.
See what we got.